in the short lifespan of this podcast, I'm realizing that these types of episodes are my favorite episodes. Like, obviously it's exciting when we have a bunch of news that we can discuss and we can sort of roll through a bunch of different topics and do all that. But I really do like these movie review episodes. I like us all kind of sitting, discussing sort of one topic, one main topic for an entire episode. I really look forward to it. And I'm really looking forward to this week's because I got some takes that I'm ready to lay on both of you with respect to Tatooine. I'm sorry, Dune.
Oh my God.
And so first and foremost, let's bring everybody in sort of round table intro style. Haven't done this in a couple of weeks for any of our new viewers. I am your host, Rob Furnish. With me as always is my sister, Kelly Furnish.
Hey guys.
And the one, the only, New York's own, Mr. Brad Miller.
Wow, thanks. Hi guys. How's everybody doing? We're going to talk a little Dune.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little Dune.
Dune.
I want to take you two on a journey with me. Okay. This movie was
strap in, folks.
Strap yourselves in, everybody.
Oh wow. Here we go.
So this film was a very unique experience for me. When these sort of sci-fi nerdy movies, for lack of a better term, come out, I'm somebody who goes into the theater and I know everything there is to know. Like, I go in with my fiance and I'm like, okay, so you got to remember this and you got to remember that. You got to remember this would happen in the last movie. This would happen, that sort of thing. And I'm in the educated section of the audience. That was not the case with this film. I knew nothing. I've never read the book. I never watched the original movie. I never watched any of the various TV spinoffs that have happened over the years. So I went in and I was just, all right, let's see what's about to happen here. When the movie first ended, I was like, I didn't really enjoy that. Like, that was a lot. I was confused a lot of the time. And we'll get into like the specifics when we do a deep dive into like the story and the characters and that sort of thing. But my initial reaction was like, wow, I really didn't like that. Or not didn't like it. That just didn't blow me away. It didn't knock my socks off.
Didn't resonate.
A lot of people just heard that and went,
yeah, they just turned us off, Rob. Come on.
Yeah, no, but it's like I didn't love it. I really didn't. And so then I started going down this rabbit hole because I started reading reviews and a lot of people did love this film. And so I'm kind of like, what am I missing? Like, am I missing something here? So upon further review and reflection, this is a gorgeous film. This film is incredibly shot. The sets on it are incredible. It actually does feel like it's happening on another world. Like, it's incredible. The cast is incredible. Hans Zimmer, once again, like, the man is just a genius.
Those
like he's come up in, I think he may have come up in every episode so far, which is in and of itself a true mark of a genius.
I've literally been looking at my fiance for 3 days going, what do you want?
So I'm sure she loves that.
Wow.
I'm sure that's a really pleasant experience for her.
That's beautiful.
So I'm sitting here and I'm going, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? And then I saw a take on Twitter that I want to read out to you guys because it perfectly encompasses what I feel and what I felt and why this movie didn't leave me feeling like pumped to the moon. This was a tweet from a gentleman who I follow on Twitter named Blu-ray Angel, who is one of the co-hosts of the GOAT Movie podcast. And this is exactly how I felt. So this original book came out in 1965, right? So he said, I feel bad for Dune movie because the story seems kind of obsolete in a post-Star Wars world for general audiences. George Lucas definitely took the best elements from Herbert's story and enhanced every aspect. Political themes, the Force, lightsaber, setting, heroes, villains. That's exactly how I felt. This movie missed the emotion for me. I didn't feel a sense of attachment to these characters, except for maybe Paul. But all in all, like, I didn't there was no emotion. I was just kind of sitting there watching it unfold and trying to keep up with all this information that they're trying to download into my brain. And I promise I'm gonna open it up to you guys here any minute now. But like,
no, keep going, buddy.
No, but like, so to me, this was like if you took Star Wars and mixed it with Game of Thrones, but you tried to do all of like set up 3 seasons worth of Game of Thrones in one movie. Like, it was a lot of like, here's this planet, and here's this, here's these people, and here, this is what they do. And this group, Harkonnen, ran the Dune planet before Leto and whatever Atreides did. And it's just like, even now, it's like, I'm trying to remember all the names. I'm trying to remember all the characters. It's just, it was a lot. It was too much for me. And because they're jamming so much and trying to download so much into my brain, and during my rabbit hole that I went down on the weekend reading about Dune, a lot of people had said with previous iterations and TV shows and whatever, is this is a lot to try and do in a movie. And that's why directors previously before Denis Villeneuve were sort of scared to touch this project, because it's like, it's a lot. Like I said, I feel like this would have been better in like as like a season TV show on HBO or something. Like I really do think that. So for me, initial thoughts, and then I'll punt it over to you guys. Beautiful movie, incredible actors, lots of information that took away from the emotion of characters, and I didn't necessarily care about anyone in this movie, and that is where it lost me. Your thoughts on my opening soliloquy, Kelly or Brad? Which one of you both looking like I don't even know what to do with this?
I think I'm gonna jump in, because I think probably my opinion is closer to yours, Rob, than it will be to Brad. So we'll let Brad come in at the
we'll
do this. I think that's exactly what we're gonna do.
An upward trend.
So I'll just preface not only my take, but I probably think all of our takes with, if whoever's watching this right now is coming here for expertise on the Frank Herbert novel and world, you're in the wrong place. Like, we are not experts on that book. I think some of us have varying degrees of knowledge, but not experts on that book. So I say that to say that all of my feelings about this are really on the merits of this movie, and not the movie being an adaptation of a book, because I don't know the source material. So I just have to judge the movie on what I saw on the screen in my experience, right? I think that if you are into sci-fi, and I'm talking like authentic science fiction, you will enjoy this movie far more than the average person who's maybe not as enveloped in that type of material. I took a science fiction course in university. I didn't do very well because it's not my cup of tea. So I think when I'm, I really do, in like, if I'm, trying to be a fair reviewer, I have to come clean that while I like movies like Star Wars and things like that, I don't know if I'm a sci-fi purist as much. And I think that that's maybe where I struggle a little bit with some of the things that Rob mentioned, right? Like, it's so authentic in that way. Now, some of the pros of this movie for me, like scale and scope, like Denis Villeneuve knows how to shoot a movie. He knows how to make a world look expansive and make a world look real. Like, I think it's a shot in the trailer, but it's definitely in the movie when they're on the what's it called, the Thopter, and they're pulling away, and there's the sandworm coming up, and that sandworm is taking over the entire screen and field of vision. And it's like, this guy knows how to show, like, so how big that threat is. Like, he understands how to create that. Other positives, I think it was a great cast. Timothée Chalamet, obviously, as the lead character, I thought he did a fantastic job. It made me want to look more into Timothée Chalamet's work. I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff, honestly. And I also am starting to fan cast him in other places now, because I think he did such an excellent job. I think another standout for me was our boy Aquaman, Jason Momoa as Duncan,
Same.
Idaho.
Mhm.
I think was the most human character in that movie. So Rob, when you're talking about your connection to characters, I agree. Some of them, a lot of the characters, spoiler alerts, folks, a lot of the characters die. And he was the only one where I really was like, no, like everyone else, I either kind of saw it coming from a mile away, or I didn't quite have the same connection to them for it to hit hard for me.
To land,
yeah. And then I think, again, we'll get into the details of it, but I think on the sort of con side of things, I think, yeah, Rob, like you hit it for me too. It's like, they have a lot of surface to cover here. They got a lot to go over, and we're kind of only scratching, the edge of it. We don't quite get to the thing that stands out for me the most from that is like we land on Arrakis, which is this world of intrigue and mystery and all that stuff. And we don't sort of have that. Like I thought of Harry Potter in this moment, when Harry Potter finds out that he's a wizard, and then he's sort of our fish out of water view into discovering the world of wizardry and stuff. And I didn't feel that they had Timothy Chalamet, which I think he would be the character to do this, bring us into that world and help us discover it in the same way. So the world looked very pretty. I didn't feel it, and it didn't feel as tangible to me, or I didn't know the nuances of it enough. So yeah, I think overall, like it was going for a lot, and it's hard to go deep on everything when you're trying to do as much as they did. I think we'll also talk about, but I'll let Brad chime in now. I think we'll also talk about, does this movie on its own feel complete? I think that's another thing that I've been, a lot of people for there's sort of mixed reviews. I think that's the sticking point for people who are falling on the side of didn't quite hit, is it ends in a funny place for me. So I'm kind of in the middle. Like there's things about it I like, things about it I don't. It's a lot to take in. Over to you, Brad.
Take it home, Brad. Everyone who's watching Kelly and I right now being like, you stupid. Help them.
Okay. Here's my thing. I don't agree. Not in its entirety of what you're saying, but I don't agree as far as I didn't leave the theater the same way you guys did. I left, to Kelly's point, in the other group. I was like, whoa, wow, okay, cool. I really enjoyed it. And I actually made this joke to Rob right before we started this podcast tonight that anybody that's watched the first few episodes of our podcast and will continue to watch, they're probably going to laugh because they're just going to think I love everything. It's not true. It's not true. But
wait till our Man of Steel retrospective episode. Then you'll see that Brad does not love everything.
Warner Brothers is going to put a target on my back out of that one. But anyways, so this movie, Dune, this was a movie that we had been looking forward to for, again, like a year and a half, what have you. It was one of the ones that was kind of a completed movie that everybody had been psyched about for quite some time. A lot of history, a lot of fans, sci-fi, etc. And then placed on a shelf. And then we all had to sit and go, okay, when's this coming out? And I was one of the people who was like really, really itching to watch this one. I wasn't disappointed, but I also do understand where people are coming from the perspective of like, it maybe left you a little flat as far as like maybe some character development, caring about who certain people are. And I think, but for me, there was a few things I knew going into this. And one of the things was I got a little bit of a breakdown. I also didn't read the book or watch the original Dune, nor the series that I didn't know existed until I hit up IMDb earlier today. Did not know in 2000 there was also a different version. Okay. But here was my thing. I have a friend who was a huge fan of the book and has actually gone back to see it now twice because he loves it so much. because to your point, Kelly, I would say he is a sci-fi purist.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you sometimes end up in a situation like this is where you have source material in a book that has a very, very special place for a lot of people. And sometimes when they stick really true to it, there's people who are upset. And then when they do the opposite, there's other people that are upset. Yeah. So in this instance, we got something that's, to everything I've heard, very true to the source material. So even down to little things like, I was told that even the spice that you're supposed to smell, like in the book, it's described as being like a cinnamon smell. So like, especially if you saw this in theaters, it was something that was like, because it was so visually stunning, like these little things that I even knew just from this conversation lent itself to me in the book, in the watching of the film. So I felt like I actually already had a little bit of a connection to it, but I think if you didn't, it may have landed a little bit flat as far as certain character development or whatever. And to some of these points that you've also landed on, like, I think this actually would have lended itself better to be a series.
Yes.
A short mini series.
Yes.
Or it could have been a television series. Whichever, but there's so much information.
Yes.
But again, all of that aside, visually, I was so excited. I was so excited to see this movie because it was like, I never really experienced seeing a sci-fi movie where I really didn't already know something about it. Like when Star Wars came out originally, 1977, I believe, nobody really knew what that was. You went into it, you experienced it, and were like, oh, I don't feel like we ever had that. And so I didn't want to watch the movie. I don't want to know too much about what else goes on in the plot because I want to enjoy that sequel. And I was very, very taken with the visuals, even though, again, a lot of darker tone, maybe not as much, let's say like super lovable characters like in Star Wars or, the Hobbits in Lord of the Rings. But there was a weight to it that I was really actually enjoying. And I think that sometimes that doesn't land. For this, it did for me. I thought that even somebody like Timothy Chalamet, who you were a little bit more connected to, had a little bit of levity to him at times with his interactions with Jason Momoa or his father or what have you. And I really enjoyed it. I did. Visually, that was stunning. Music, Hans Zimmer, stunning.
Oh, incredible.
And I think this was something that was actually very experimental that gave me a lot of pause as far as I've never, and again, comment below if you know this, but I don't, has there ever been a movie other than, let's say, the last installment of Harry Potter that was split into two movies, or the Lord of the Rings, which were 3 books and they made 3 movies. This is something where we're starting off with a sequel for one, like, or it's set up to be a sequel, but it was 1 book. So like a television show, we get installments, but it's like we're getting installments in a movie format. So
well,
I think
not 100%.
Not 100%, but we'll get into it. Yes, we'll get into it for sure.
Yeah.
But I was actually incredibly impressed with Warner Brothers to even kind of do that without knowing that, like, again, not originally filmed like the Lord of the Rings, where it's like they just did all of them and then, they came out year after year once it was in the can. This was something where it was kind of like, no, we're going to split this into 2 right off the hop. And it was only 1 book because it was such a big story. I'm on the side of this movie that I actually think, fingers crossed they do the sequel, that it's going to lend itself over time. This is a movie that I feel like it will age well. I feel like it's going to be something that it's like, once it's out and we can really fully digest what it was, this is something that will continue on as being a real nod to original sci-fi. Some of these titans of sci-fi that really kind of got this going, that inspired people like George Lucas or James Cameron or whoever. And like I said, not necessarily for everybody. And also to Kelly's point, it's a very sci-fi movie. But if you love sci-fi, like I do, I was very much sold. And it was such an experience for the theater. Shout out theaters again. Go see this in the theater. Don't watch us on your couch at home unless you've got some like wildly incredible setup with a sound system and a big screen. This was a movie to see in the theater. It was beautiful. So all in all, I'm giving it a thumbs up. But this is also difficult to fully review because it isn't a complete movie.
It's interesting that you say, it's interesting that you say like it may age better over time. Like I also wonder if it'll age better when the second one is out.
Yeah,
correct.
And you're looking at it in totality, because again, like I said, like some, a lot of other people are saying, it's like, it's hard to review this as a movie when there's such a big chunk of it missing, or that there's information coming later that's going to help inform things that you've sort of been given a teaser to. Even I was talking to my fiance who has actually like read the book and like knows the material, and I was kind of talking to him about some of the feelings that I had, and he kept being like, well, yeah, but that's coming. And I'm like, okay, well, great. But I'm going into this blind as a moviegoer, and I've got to give you my money and I've got to pay my ticket and enjoy this movie, or you're not going to get your second movie. Right. And so I think that's the tricky part about taking on a story like this, is that it kind of lends itself to being broken up into parts, but each of those parts needs to be equally as compelling and equally as accessible probably for the average moviegoer. Because I think, like I said, when, off the top, when I was saying that I think people who have read this book will love it more, it's because they're going, oh my God, they're showing, like, this is how they're visualizing this.
The sandworms.
They're already bought into the story, so that they can just live in like the way that Denis Villeneuve is bringing it to life. Whereas for moviegoers like Rob and I, and who didn't have a friend nearby as a lifeline to give us scent and smell and taste sensory clues, we're not
we're not in the theater like
I actually brought a little bag of cinnamon once he told me that. I was like, I'm tasting it. I'm tasting the sand.
But yeah, exactly. So like, we're discovering it for the first time, whereas I think people going in who already are kind of, bleeding Dune blood, like are ready for it, right?
If you go down the Rotten Tomatoes like reviews, that is what's happening here. You've got the sci-fi stans who know the story, who are like, this is incredible, and then the sort of general audience like myself and Kelly, who are kind of like, it was okay. I want to make it abundantly clear. Like, I in no way am like, this movie sucked. In no way am I saying that, and in no way is that my opinion. But I just I'm sitting and I'm watching Oscar Isaac's character Leto sacrifice his life, and it's supposed to be this like huge moment where he sacrifices himself for his like the safety of his wife and his son, and I'm just like, well, hardly knew you. Like I just think that like you're trying to, this is why I just think, because there's so much information that they're downloading into your brain, proper character development from a standpoint of making me feel attached to these characters kind of goes by the wayside. Now, I don't include Paul Atreides, Timothy Chalamet, or as I'm starting to call him, Dick Grayson.
It all circles back to Batman with
always. We can't get an episode by without it.
always. His character is exempt because I think because you're downloading all this information, you only have so much time to develop proper characters. So Paul was the one who we're just going to focus on, and we're going to bring him along, and his story is really interesting and compelling, and you're going on this journey with him. But like I said, like I just, there's a couple moments in this. The one that stands out to me most is when Leto kills himself with the poison tooth. Right. And it's just like the music is epic, and this whole moment is epic, and like it's supposed to be, like I said, this great thing, and it's just like, okay, like I just think this I would have enjoyed this more if it was like an 8-episode miniseries on HBO. Like because then you're getting 8 hours to explain everything to me and like that sort of thing. So it's just kind of like
take some time to digest a little bit.
Yeah.
And I feel you. Also, I understand.
Also, now I understand why people who do podcasts like ours, like sometimes I'll fire up a movie review podcast and people will be like, well, I've seen it 3 times now. And it's like, I kind of get why people do that now, because it's like you need to go back and watch it a couple more times to make sure you've like digested.
Yeah.
Because I've actually been thinking that too. Like when I told you guys, when I first left the theater, I was like, oh my God, that I don't really know. But as I kept like
where am I?
It's just like a sad car ride home.
Yeah, it's like
in your feelings.
But as I'm reading about it and as I'm reading people's thoughts and the people like your friend you're talking about, Brad, and how it's just like, oh my God, I'm like, you know what? Maybe like I should go back and I should watch it again through this different lens. And I don't know. The closest comparison to this is obviously Star Wars. And I think maybe that's what I was expecting. Just to especially with the actors they've cast. Like I was expecting to become more attached to these characters in this world. And I just it was cool as hell to look at. And but it's just, I just didn't feel like, it didn't make me feel.
I think it's very astute to make the person you quoted earlier to make the to say that it took the best parts of Star Wars. I'm going to maybe reframe that a little bit and say, I think it took, Star Wars took the best parts of Dune.
Yeah, because Lucas, just quickly, because Lucas has cited Dune as like an inspiration.
And it's an inspiration. It's an inspiration for The Matrix. It is like sci-fi classic. Yes, exactly. The chosen one, right? I think instead of saying that it took the best of it, I think it took the simplest parts of it, right? Like Star Wars is a story about good versus evil, and there is one person, and it's like, you know, and you can even draw a compare. I'm gonna get really biblical on you guys, but it's like you've got this like Jesus Christ chosen one character who is right, and that's simple storytelling, right? And then you get into Dune, and it's got good, evil, chosen one, but then you've also got themes around imperialism with the emperor, like, you know, and he's making decisions on who's going to, you know, come into Arrakis and whatever. And then you've got themes about like environmentalism and like the harvesting of blah, blah, blah. And I actually think, maybe I'm calling myself a simpleton here, but like, it's a little complicated, right? Like I was watching a documentary recently. It's escaping me what it was about, but they were kind of talking about keep the story simple and the plot complex from the perspective of like, make your characters interesting and make your character. And so I'm wondering if it's just a lot of beats that they're trying to hit. Whereas Star Wars is 2 guys with swords fighting for the good of humanity. Like my fiance jokes all the time that Star Wars at its core is actually for children, because it's a very basic.
Lucas says that.
It's a very basic, and hey, I'm saying that as someone who's like totally bought in, like count me in, right? But yeah, like Dune is very complex. And so then you've broken it into 2 pieces. You've got a lot of people going in blind. And so that's why, like, when Rob and I were sharing our thoughts, I was like prefacing it with a million things of like, I've never read the book. I don't really know sci-fi.
You said
so
there
out of my element.
You just said there, like, maybe I'm a simpleton. It's like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think I think for once, and this is what I said off the top of the
guys.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think it's like what I said off the top of the episode is this is a rare occasion, Kelly, for you and me specifically, where we're going into this movie as a part of the general audience. Like,
yeah, true.
We always talk about, like, when we watch a nerd movie, well, they're veering away and they're changing this because the general audience who's here won't get it. Right. And like, for once, we're a part of that general audience. That is like, I have no idea what I'm watching. I'm learning all of this for the first time. It was honestly, I kind of like, it was an interesting experience because that's not how I watch sci-fi or nerd movies like this. I am like, I know everything.
Exactly. But and I wanted to maintain that, in all honesty. Like, that wasn't like something that just kind of happened to me. I knew based off of, and actually I didn't discuss it with him ahead of time, but this was also a favorite of my dad's. Like, he read this as well as like Isaac Asimov books, like a lot of sci-fi stuff. So I kind of grew up with that in some regard, just like, again, I'm not somebody who's necessarily taking a deep cut into it, but I can also appreciate it, even if I don't fully know all of it. And so with this, I just felt like it was okay. Like it was okay to not fully understand all of it. It was okay not to necessarily be like super attached to it at times, because it's considered such a masterpiece, really, that it was nice to know that you were seeing something that Hollywood, for lack of a better way of putting it, wasn't getting their sticky, grubby fingers all over it. As far as like, not changing things for the general eye. Well, of course they do to some degree, but like, you know what I'm saying?
But
like,
you don't hire Denis Villeneuve and then cut his movie to pieces. Like if you're putting Denis Villeneuve in charge, you're saying go make your movie.
Correct. Yeah. Which is that's exactly what I'm saying here, where it's like, again, you got that guy, and he almost made like an art film sci-fi movie, and it was what it was. It was a visual audio roller coaster ride for anybody that saw it, whether you actually were like fully understanding who all the characters were, if you were fully understanding like who the different houses were. And again, I know a lot of people are going like, well, this is like Lord of the Rings, or like this is like Star Wars. And it's like, yeah, guess where he got it from, man? Like that was this is the OG. And so yes.
And Stellan Skarsgård's character, like that, like I was literally waiting for him to go, you will die.
Well, I haven't heard one person reference this, and I swear, I mean no disrespect when I say this. Anybody that saw Marlon Brando in like his later years and acting performances, if you told me that Marlon Brando had come back from the grave and decided to be in Dune, I would be like, oh my God, how did they pull this off? But I thought his performance was a huge standout.
Oh yeah. The acting performances, for sure.
Yeah, across the board.
Yeah.
See, and that's what's so funny, because it's like this could have been a different movie, and I might not have felt the same way, but I think because going into it, I knew the weight that this book holds for so many people, and knowing that the people who really appreciate the book and appreciated the original source material and everything else that goes along with it were giving it the thumbs up. I was like, I'm just going to accept this and just take it in. And I didn't really care that I didn't know, like I did. It would be a lie to say like, I know all the character names and like everything else. I'm going through IMDb trying to remember certain things, just like a lot of people. But the thing is, it's like, again, I think you just need to, not you, anybody that's going to see it. You, the listeners, need to just go into it and think, I'm just going to accept this for what it is. I'm just going to take this in as the visual audio story extravaganza that it is, and know that there is more to this story coming. I think they're going to do it, by the way. Maybe this is a good segue into that.
Yeah.
I don't, there's no chance Warner Brothers is going to go.
Before we do move on and talk about Dune Part 2, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the cast and like some standout acting performances. Kelly, you mentioned Jason Momoa earlier as Duncan Idaho.
Love him.
I just love Josh Brolin, like for two reasons. One, like I love the scene where he's standing with Leto and Leto's like, smile, Gurney, and he's like, I am smiling. The way he says that, I just like, I'm in my head going, fun isn't something one considers when destroying the universe. I'll just never not hear that. And it's just the one scene where he's like, they're ruthless, they're brutal. And it's like the vein is like popping out the side of his neck, and he's like, I love him. I love his intensity.
Everybody that just was maybe sleeping a little bit on this podcast just woke up when he
And Kelly, I'm sorry, for the rest of my life, whenever I hear Javier Bardem's voice, I'm just always going to think of you. Like he's the scene at the end where Paul is having like the showdown with one of the Fremen warriors, and Javier Bardem's character Stilgar is kind of like narrating and like discussing like what they're doing. I'm just waiting for him to go, "Mommy was very bad."
For new listeners, he's referencing a terrible impression I did a few weeks ago. Go check it out. And
but
I don't know.
It's
pretty good. It's
dude,
pretty good.
if you're listening, no one who doesn't know what I'm referencing there is listening to this podcast.
It's true.
Yes, it's no one.
We'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
All right, give me some standout performances.
Yeah, I mean, Brad, earlier you mentioned that you didn't think WB had like meddled much with this movie, which I totally agree with. I think they did meddle a little in the marketing with Zendaya, who's in the movie for 7 minutes. But the trailers make it look like she's, she's the second
standout.
She's second on the call sheet, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, and from what I understand, and talking to my fiance who knows a lot more about this than I do, she's going to be a way bigger part of part 2. Again, I think we're going to discuss that there probably will be one. So yeah, but she's in it for 7 minutes. For any diehard Zendaya fans, if you're going there to see her, you might be disappointed.
Hold tight to those the voiceovers and the little bit at the end.
Yeah. And then speaking of the females in the film, I think Rebecca Ferguson does a really great job as Lady Jessica, but this woman is 12 years older than Timothy Chalamet, and she's playing his mom. So that was a little distracting for me. This woman doesn't have a wrinkle, doesn't have a gray hair. It has a 25-year-old son. So
it's a different universe, Kelly. Hello.
Yeah, maybe they're having babies at 9 years old. Who knows? But
she's a member of the Bene Gesserit. It could be like some sort of magic thing.
Is true.
And I did want to say that was one of my favorite scenes in the movie when Paul goes in to see like the Bene Gesserit witch, and she has like the poison needle to his neck and he has to put his hand in the box.
Great scene.
And then at the end, she's like, "Good luck, human. I hope you live." Like that's, you could just
so
see,
cold, but it was
that was so like Jedi training. Like it's like I said, you can just watch this movie and you could see where Lucas plucked his ideas from. Like, like the voice, like that is. I was literally waiting for him to turn to someone and go, "You don't need to see his identification. These aren't the droids you're looking for."
But see, this is what I'm saying. Anybody that was like upset that there wasn't more like as far as like what Star Wars did. Again, no, you're talking to somebody who freaking loves Star Wars, but this wasn't that. And so I'm glad that some of this was like such a dark tone. I love that it was dark. I loved that there was no real like room for fluff. This was like a really intense situation with a lot of really intense things going on. And it made it feel very like real world. And I think all the acting performances, let's go back into that, lent itself to it. Whether it was, yes, it was nice to have Jason Momoa a little bit being like maybe a little bit more relatable and doing his famous Jason Momoa body taps. Like every hey kid, like I love that. Like give me more of those too. But everybody did a great job with this. There was nobody I could really kind of go like you didn't really like, maybe they phoned it a little bit. Even again, let's circle back to Zendaya. Yes, she's in it very briefly. She's gonna be, not that she's not already. She's a big star in her own right already, but she's gonna be huge. I think that her presence, even in the last little bit of the movie that we got, let's say the last 10, 15, she adds such a weight to what's going to now go on later with the relationship that when the movie did end, that was one of the things I was kind of like, oh, I wanted to see the next thing, because it was kind of like, she's lending a lot of her acting chops to this in a group that there's a lot of acting chops. So I was very, very impressed with her. Timothy Chalamet is
he was fantastic.
He was excellent.
Standout of the movie for me was Timothy Chalamet. He was absolutely fantastic.
Yes, whether it's I mean, pick even he was in Little Women in 2019, nominated for best picture. He was in Lady Bird, nominated for best picture, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of movies that have been nominated for best picture. So he's an incredible talent. I could go on all day about all the performances and all the nuance and everything else, but I thought it was a really, really great performance by everybody. Like you said, I wish it could have maybe been spread out a little bit and we could have got more of Oscar Isaac or a little bit more of
with
Jason
Oscar
Momoa.
Isaac. With Oscar Isaac, as I was watching the movie, I turned to my fiance and I said, well, he's going to die. He's too good of a dad.
Yeah.
He's too nice of a dad.
Yeah.
He's too good. He's too nice of a dad. He's going to eat it.
I also love the scene with Paul and Duncan Idaho, where like Duncan Idaho just sloughs him off. Like Paul is like really emotional. He's like, I've been having dreams. And it's like, he's like trying to convey, like, been really struggling with my dreams. And Duncan Idaho's like, well, all the good shit happens when we're awake. So
shut up.
So, F your dreams.
Yeah. But listen, again, I think across the board, stellar cast.
Unbelievable cast.
Yeah. So there's not too much else to add
Dave
to that.
Batista. Even Dave Batista, who just played
about Dave
Batista.
Yeah.
Who just played kind of like
Dave Batista
played kind of like a mindless like henchman, for lack of a better term.
Yes,
to the Emperor's nephew. Yeah.
And then there's David. I'm gonna butcher his last name. I never know how to pronounce it. David Desmalchian. Who's in
that's as best as I would do.
He's in The Dark Knight, he's in Suicide Squad, he's in everything that we've seen. He's in everything, but he plays
Polka Dot Man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we could go on for days.
So let's talk about it.
Sequel.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is getting a sequel. I think there's enough intrigue now. Like, listen, I've sat here and said that we'll do thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle at the end, but like, spoiler alert, this was a thumbs in the middle movie for me, and I'm gonna want to see part 2.
Yeah.
I'm not good. Like, I want to see where it goes. Mm-hmm. So even if you're someone like me who was relatively underwhelmed, I still want to know where the story goes.
Yeah, I think if you look at how much this movie has made, if you look at which I think was like 200 million worldwide, like already, something like that.
Which is pretty incredible considering it's also available on HBO Max.
Yeah, it's already, don't quote me on that. But it's performing well. It's got good Rotten Tomatoes scores. You've got a bunch of bankable. I mean, half of the cast is now dead, but I'm sure for whoever else is going to come into because I'm sure there's more characters that we'll meet, and we'll probably get the same caliber of actors, I think. And then you've got these 2 young actors, Timothy and Zendaya, who are just on that like maturity curve of their career, and so I think it's like Warner Brothers this is a sound investment. I see it going forward. I don't think there's any debate at this point, unless Brad, you want to challenge me.
Imagine I was like gushing about this movie, and then I was like, that's not going to happen. No, it's done. No, I definitely think it's going to happen. I also think, listen, in the off chance, in my opinion, that they don't do it, massive mistake, because you've now seen Warner Brothers pour money into, we actually talked about this in regards to, other projects over at Warner Brothers in the DCEU, where it was like not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and what have you. And so I really don't think they're gonna scrap it. And it was one of the things that I knew was in flux because of the time frame that had happened because of the pandemic in between, and trying to get people back or how it performs and blah, blah. And it was one of the things I was laughing about at the end, again, not knowing the book really, and half the cast dying off. And I was like, well, there's one problem you don't have to worry about. Like, they don't need to worry about scheduling. But whoever else comes in, there's still going to be a lot of, cast left over from the first movie and everything. It's definitely getting made. It was a thumbs up for me for sure. But again, like we mentioned earlier in this podcast, I actually think this is one of the more interesting movies to review. Even if we weren't doing this podcast, it would be very interesting to discuss this movie because it's not complete. And I remember when the Lord of the Rings did come out, I know I keep circling back to it, but when the Lord of the Rings did come out back in the early 2000s, I remember hearing person after person after person going, well, I don't understand. Like, what happened? They just were walking and then the movie ended. And it was like, well, it's going to continue.
The first Hobbit comes to mind too, Brad.
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of people just, well, okay, well, there you go. That's a good example then.
Because the dragon, doesn't that movie end with the dragon like flying like sort of down the hill and like
yes,
Bilbo watches him go by and then it's just like credits.
Yeah. But again, a lot of people just didn't fully understand. And now those like Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies and everything are widely loved to the point where the third installment of Return of the King ended up winning the best picture that year, 2005.
Dude, you could make that argument like what is Infinity War? Like,
yeah.
Infinity War. Yeah, Infinity War is setting you up for what's coming next. That's very much an episodic part one film.
Exactly.
So, like, if you can't get your head around that, like, you ever watched a TV show before?
Well, exactly. So I think people just need to let it breathe a little bit, marinate. If you can afford it, or if you just feel like you want to, or now that maybe you have seen it in the theater and you feel like you need another go round, I think that's a good time to maybe watch it on HBO Max. I might do it that way. But as far as, you know, the people that are saying like, oh, I didn't know enough and I didn't, whatever, no offense to, you know, like, I know you guys were saying that, but again, it's like, just take it in. If you don't feel like you maybe got the full thing or whatever, there's a reason for that. You haven't watched the whole picture.
It's not that though, Brad. Like, it's not that. I want to feel connected to characters and I didn't.
Right.
Like I said, like I keep referencing it because it's just the perfect example is Oscar Isaac, King Leto's death or whatever meant nothing to me. Like it didn't, it's just like I said earlier, hardly knew you. Right. So
and
it's
the other thing I'd say is, now we're going back into opinion territory, but like,
sorry guys, I had to stir it up.
I had to stir the pot, but it's like,
we're like trying to get out of here. And Brad's like, no,
get back. So I'm never going to go read that book. Never. I'm going to die not having read that book. So without you telling me, I have no idea that the spice smells like cinnamon. That's a small example, but what I'm saying is like, what are they doing for the average moviegoer who doesn't know anything to bring them into those little, it's the details, it's the tangible details of this world where I'm like, I didn't know it smells like cinnamon. That maybe makes me like get into it a little more, like just the little pieces that I think that they're almost putting too much onus on, you know, the source material. Then you're bought in. Like, I think it was that for me. It was just like, I needed Timothy Chalamet for 2 seconds to reach down in his still suit, pick up some spice and say, smells like cinnamon. And then I start to get it. Like, it's that I don't have, we don't have that person discovering the world the way that the audience is also discovering the world. We're just kind of there and we all are expected to just sort of like, get it or like be there or like just put up and shut up. Like it's
but that's what I'm saying. I think you are supposed to do that though. I think you are just supposed to, but that's what
I want the cinnamon.
But I think if you come at it from our standpoint of like the general movie going audience, then it doesn't resonate with you as much. Like you need, that's why I keep saying this was such an eye-opening experience for me, because I'm usually on the other side being like, figure it out, read a comic book. Iron Man is Tony Stark, you idiot. Like I'm usually on that side of the theater. But like this time I was sitting there going, Atreides, Harkonnen.
Right. While I'm hearing you. This was another thing I actually did mean to mention before. This was something that I actually was thinking while I was walking out of the theater as well, was the fact that it was like, a lot of people, again, in reference to people actually going out to the movies and watching movies, and is it becoming like almost like a dying art form in its own right? Not necessarily movies, but just like how you go and watch them and whatever. There was something to be said that this was different. it was different for the Hollywood again seems to kind of get into these not ruts, but just ways of doing things where it just becomes a little like as far as like how movie making is done. And we got something different where it was, maybe, you are just supposed to be like a bit of a fly on the wall. Like you've literally just been dropped into this situation and you're not supposed to take in the characters the way, maybe we have in other movies. Like it's just something that maybe we're not used to. And it's just a little almost like hard to wrap your mind around. But again, like we said, I'm having a hard time kind of reviewing this in its totality as well, because we don't have the full thing. I think it would be really interesting to have a full circle back to this actual episode. So hopefully fast forward 2 years from now, people will be watching this going, this is what they were talking about in the new episode after they made the sequel. Yep. But it would be interesting to hear us talking this way and how we feel when the full movie is now out. Yeah. If you want to look at it that way and feel like, well, we've had time to digest those characters more. And now when we're watching the sequel, maybe those characters were the ones we were supposed to care the most about. But because, Oscar Isaac and all these people are names that we know, we think we have to know them really, really well. And we have to care about them a lot, but maybe that's not the point. That's where I'm coming from.
You can say this movie's got us talking. It's divisive.
Yeah, 100%. It's 100%. Also, I just had a brain cramp there. I referred to Oscar Isaac's character earlier as King Leto. It's Duke Leto of Atreides. So everybody, before you
we're gonna get murdered in the comments.
Before you come for me with the pitchforks.
Wow. Yeah.
I know it's Duke.
He meant
Leto.
Duke. He meant.
I know it's Duke Leto.
Calm down.
Everyone, calm down.
Because if people are going to be brutal on me if they find out that I screwed up the name.
If that's not the clip that we use for our social media, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to for the podcast, for the cover art for the podcast, I want like a side shot of Josh Brolin with the like monstrous vein sticking out of his neck when he's going, and he's like right in Paul's face too. He's like, you ever just see somebody on film and just go or whatever? Like I wouldn't mess with that person. Like
yeah, Josh Brolin.
Nope.
I mean,
kick your ass.
Yeah, he sure would. Anyways, I think we should get out of here. We've sat here and yammered on about this movie long enough. I think, listen, while we all don't totally agree on how we felt when the finished product was over, I think we all do agree. Go see this movie. It's worth your time. You should definitely watch it. It's an immersive, incredible visual experience and something everyone should check out 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
So with that, that's going to do it for us this week. If you guys like what you see, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Spread the word. Tell your friends. It helps us. This is the classic podcast line. I've yet to use it on here, but I'm going to say it. It helps with the algorithm, guys. It helps with the algorithm if you like and you leave a review, because then we get recommended to more people and we grow, and we ultimately want to grow.
Hey, you guys want a part 2 to this a couple years from now when they do the sequel? Hit the like and subscribe.
Hit the like and subscribe button. Anyways, hope everyone enjoyed this week. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.